My name's David Almond and I'm a writer. I write stories and novels and plays and songs. I write all kinds of things. I love writing, that's what I do. I come from the northeast of England, I come from Tyneside. I live in Newcastle. You can probably tell by my accent that that's where I come from. I have a northeastern accent. I'm here today to tell you about my book, my new book, which is called War is Over. And War is Over is being published to mark the centenary of the end of the First World War in 1918. So the First World War finished 100 years ago this month, this November. It's a book about a boy. It's a book about an ordinary boy called John who lives in Newcastle, who's growing up at a time of war. His dad is in the trenches, fighting in the trenches in France against the Germans. His mum is working in a munitions factory just along the road from where he lives. He's as scared for his mum as he is for his dad because his mum is working in a place where terrible accidents sometimes happen. And he's thinking, well, I'm just a kid, I'm just an ordinary kid, how can I be at war? And lots of his friends are saying the same as well, boys and girls in his class saying, I'm just an ordinary boy, I'm just an ordinary girl, why should I be at war? Of course, some of them love it. Some of his friends are running around throwing imaginary bombs and shooting imaginary bullets and enjoying that sense of being at war. And some of his teachers are saying, yes, you know, it's very important that our country is at war. We have to defeat the evil enemy. One of the things that happens in the story is that through a strange process, John has a kind of dreamlike, strange meeting with another boy. And the boy is called Jan. And it turns out that Jan is a boy from Germany. And John realizes that Jan is just like him. But he's told that German children are his enemies. And he's thinking, well, how can I have enemies of other children from other countries? He's just like me. One of the kind of things that really set me thinking about how to write this book was when I went to the Imperial War Museum in London, which is a fantastic museum. It doesn't celebrate war, it just informs us about war. And I remember walking to the museum, and outside the museum there are two great big cannon just outside with huge cannon pointing into the sky. And I remember walking up to the cannon, the first thing I did was just put my hand on the cannon. And it was terrifying because this hard, cold, huge metal thing is designed to destroy the thing that was touching it. So that touching of my flesh against the hard metal was a really important, significant moment. And then going into the factory, another thing was seeing the images of the war, of course, seeing the images of the trenches and people being killed in the trenches, but also seeing pictures of munitions factories. And then a munitions factory in Newcastle. The biggest munitions factory in the world existed in Newcastle, Armstrong's munitions factory. That's where John's mum works. The book is set 100 years ago, but you know, the First World War was supposed to be the war that brought all wars to an end. There'd be no more wars. And you think, oh yeah. But you know, look around the world today. How many wars are there? So all across the world, there are boys and girls thinking, I'm just a child. How can I be at war? So it's a book that's set all the time ago, but it's also, I think, a book that's relevant for today, relevant for all of us. And I think in the end it's quite a hopeful book because John and Jan see that the hope in the world is in young people. The hope in the world, the optimism can come from youngsters because you can grow up and help to bring about a world in which there is no war. It's kind of the eternal optimism of everyone. Oh, yes, we'll make a world where there'll be no war. Maybe you'll grow up and help to create that kind of world. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Let's see. Anyway, I thought that I'd finish by reading a section of the book to you. I'll show you some of the images first. This is a wonderful image by David Litchfield of John's dreamlike friend called Jan. There he is in the woods just outside the town. This is David's image of the shells stacked in endless array on the floor of the munitions factory. And the book is filled with just extraordinary pictures and imagery and just wonderful things like the cover image itself. There's lovely John going through this world. And above him there are birds, but there are also shells flying through the sky. In this section I'm going to read, it's on school outing, and I'm sure some of you have been on school outings. I went on some school outings. but you wouldn't have been on a school outing like this. This was John's class going on a school outing. They're going to the munitions factory. They're going to the place where bombs and bullets and shells are made. They're going to the place where so many of their mothers work. So off they go. The teacher is called Mr. McTavish. In this section, it's just before they arrive at the gates of the munitions factory. "Remain within your twos," snapped McTavish. "Do not speak unless you're spoken to. Touch nothing unless you're invited to." They went deeper into the factory. They entered the din of machines and engines, rattles and thuds, the scream of metal against metal, the thump of hammers, squeal of drills, clatter of chains, hisses and howls of escaping steam. It was as if a great war was being played out here, by the river, in this town, below that high blackened metal echoing roof. And McTavish led them further, and he paused and spread his arms wide open at the vision that lay before them. "We cannot go further," he said. "We cannot go deeper into this factory's dangerous heart. But stand here with me, children. Feast your eyes on the wonders that are wrought here in this place." There were ranks of guns and gun carriages. There were cannon with their barrels tilted high like yearning arms. And there were shells stacked high as houses, shells no bigger than a fist, shells as big as babies, shells as big as boys, and massive shells as big as men. There were dozens of them, hundreds, thousands of them. They gleamed in the light that poured from the garish bulbs above. John couldn't help himself. He reached out to touch. He pressed his warm young hand to cold, hard metal. He thought of the shrapnel packed inside. He thought of the explosions, of the shrapnel ripping its way through skin and bone and flesh. He thought of his dad in the trench, wearing the thin steel useless helmet. "What were you told?" yelled McTavish. "Do not touch." John threw his hand away. He looked beyond the wall of shells towards the factory's heart. That's where the machines were, where the gunpowder and shrapnel were, where the blue-dressed mothers created the weapons that would make the fathers safe. John searched for his man with his eyes. He wanted to wave and for her to wave back. He wanted to find her and to run to her, but he couldn't discern her. The women seemed tiny, indistinguishable in their blue uniforms. They were diminished by the vastness of the machines at which they worked. But then suddenly the women knew that the children were there, and some of them laughed to see them in this place. And they spread their arms and waved, and John was certain that one of them was his mam, and he waved, and he had to hold himself back from breaking free and running to her. And then before them was a soldier on crutches with a trouser leg pinned back to show his wooden leg. Some kind of officer in a helmet, with metal epaulets on his shoulders and a dead straight row of medals on his chest. Despite the din, he didn't seem to need to raise his voice. "Welcome, children," he announced. "I am Major Hughes. As you see, I have been with the heroes. I have been with your brothers and fathers, and in this place, I am with the heroes too." His voice wasn't like those of the children. It was what McTavish's voice, when he prayed, when he talked of the war, often seemed to want to be. "Here," he said, "in this factory is where the great war will be won." "When will it be won?" yelled someone, another boy yearning for his dad to be home again. "When every rotten German's dead," laughed Alec. Hughes shrugged. "It could go on forever, children," he said. Forever? The war thudded in John's heart. Forever? A war going on forever? So that's a bit of War is Over. And I hope you enjoy the book. I hope you enjoy reading it. I hope you love David's illustrations. And it's been great to talk to you. Bye-bye.